Hey folks, Michelle Pearlman here, gastroenterologist and physician nutrition specialist.
And I'm Amy Pearlman, urologist, men's health, and sexual medicine specialist.
Welcome to Pearlman MD's podcast.
We are going to tackle all topics related to nutrition, sexual health, exercise, and mindfulness. Stay tuned. We have a very special guest with us today, Mark Asper. So Mark is a football player. So when you say, would you tell people you're a football player, former football player? How do you currently identify, Mark?
I usually say former. I say former football player. And I'm one of those guys. I played offensive line, right? So I'm 6'7". I'm currently like 290 pounds. So most people can pick me out in a crowd. I'm not like a kicker or a wide receiver that has to give their credentials. Most people, they just looking at me, they're like, "Did you used to play football?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Awesome. And you did play football for quite a while. You played at Oregon, and then you played for a bunch of professional teams. So you were at Minnesota, Jacksonville, New York Giants, Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots, Buffalo Bills, a bunch of different teams here. So today we're going to focus a little bit on nutrition and what nutrition looks like when you are playing football and what nutrition looks like as you're transitioning out of being a football player. And then what happens when you identify as a former football player. So that is completely out of my expertise, but that's why I have my sister here, Michelle Pearlman, gastroenterologist and physician nutrition specialist. So Michelle, why don't you kick us off here by telling us a little bit about some of the concerned people that you see in your office who are current and former athletes?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking for me because some of my most unhealthy patients are former collegiate and professional athletes. And they struggle a lot, I think in particular, because many of them, if they played football, they have a lot of orthopedic injuries. And so they're not even able to do kind of normal activities of daily living or go for a walk or go for a jog because they're in so much pain or they need a hip replacement. And I think the other struggle is, particularly in football that I've noticed, is that a lot of times they're pressured to maintain their weight or to put on weight. And so they have to eat thousands and thousands of calories a day because they're on the field for hours upon hours a day. And so they're burning those calories in order to maintain or gain weight. And then as soon as they stop playing, they still identify as being an athlete. And so they continue those eating behaviors and they continue eating thousands of calories and then gain the weight. And then their orthopedic injuries set in with post-traumatic arthritis. And then it's a really big struggle.
Wow. So you kind of unloaded a lot of information right there. Mm-hmm. So Mark, not to put you on the spot, but I'm definitely going to put you on the spot here. So tell us, when you were on these different football teams, what guidance were you provided by the nutrition specialist with whom you met?
So I'll talk to, I was fortunate at the University of Oregon. They were going through a regime change when I got there, and they brought in team nutritionist who was, a dynamic, charismatic, engaged individual who cared about a lot of those things. And so some of the practices changed from when he took over. Before he got there, the team nutrition was just, we had cans of protein, chocolate or vanilla protein shakes, and granola bars, boost bars. And so it was that was the nutritionist recommendations every day. It was like, hey, everybody, drink a protein shake, drink a granola, have a granola bar. But once he took over, he did was a lot more engaged with it, did some, body index stuff. And we had a bod pod that we'd all have to take turns sitting in and get our, BMIs and body fat percentages and stuff. And he was, he taught me a lot more than I ever knew before. And I carried kind of that information through into the NFL. In the NFL, they, speaking of maintaining weight and stuff, you would have during the football season, you would have a contracted weight that you had to be under. So offensive linemen and defensive linemen specifically, because we generally are in the heavier, more body fat on us for, for protective reasons and just more mass. But because of that, and because of just coping mechanisms. We were all fat kids when we were little. So we all had these very unhealthy relationships with food. Oftentimes food is often a coping mechanism. It's a happy thing. It's like, oh, I feel bad, I'm going to go destroy this entire plate of nachos. Right. And so they'd have a contracted weight that you had to, every Thursday, you'd have to weigh in. And if you were over the contracted weight, the team could fine you for each pound you were over your contracted weight. So like my contracted weight when I played was usually right around 330 pounds, and or 335, I guess was usually where it was at. Cause I would usually play between 320 and 330 would be my playing weight. And yeah, some teams had very engaged nutritionists, and they gave a lot of, advice and healthy meal plans, and they drill down to even like the, macros and what type of proteins you should be eating and stuff like that. And others, it was like, hey, did you make weight? All right. That's it.
Isn't that crazy? Because I think, there's millions upon millions of dollars spent on training for performance, right? And then the nutrition side is just put by the wayside. And we know that good nutrition enhances performance. But where is the money? Where is the investment? Where is the education in nutrition when it's something that we do every day, multiple times a day? I mean, it's just insane to me. And I think it really comes down to education, not just the players, but educating the coaches and the CEOs, because if it doesn't come from the higher ups, it's not going to trickle down. And I think the other major force here is making sure that whoever is hired for the team connects with the players. So if you have some little dainty girl that comes in with the players and says, no, you can't have a cookie, players are going to rebel, and they're going to say, oh, you're telling me I can't have a cookie? Now I'm going to have 5. So I think a big part of it is relating with the players, being realistic, but also setting players up for success. If you're a ball player and you don't get done with your game until 11 o'clock at night, then if you want good nutrition for your players, you better provide options, good meals for 11 o'clock at night, because I bet you there are not good options at the ball field at 11 p.m.
And
No.
Michelle, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, yeah, the meal, the bagged lunch, or the bagged dinner that you'd have on the team bus or the team plane on the ride home would be, yeah, anything from Popeye's chicken to a whole Little Caesars pizza. That was hey, I checked the box, I fed you.
Well, and so my sister and we were on the dance team in high school, and that is nowhere near the level of athleticism and stress and performance that you dealt with when you were on these professional teams. But we had these snacks in the rooms for hours before wherever we were in the lineup of performing. We ate like crap for hours. We had candy and chips and whatever. And I think back on that and I'm like, what were we thinking? Filling ourselves up with sugar when we have to do a 7-minute routine and perform at our best. What are we doing to ourselves? And it seems so obvious now, but at the time it wasn't obvious.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't pay attention to it until they really struggle with particularly GI symptoms. So I see a bunch of players, not because of weight management issues, although prior athletes come to me for weight management, but current players, whether it's for baseball, basketball, or football, they come to me because they're struggling with gastrointestinal issues. So I have people who wake up completely nauseated and can't eat. And so they're losing weight because they can't eat anything for half the day. And you end up finding out that they're eating tons of fat, thousands of calories late at night, 11 p.m. when they're getting off the field. And all of that heavy food is sitting in their stomach. And that's why they wake up nauseated. So they come to me because they're really struggling. They don't necessarily associate it with poor performance, but I know that if they eat better, then they're going to feel better, then they're going to maintain a healthy weight, and then they're going to perform better. And I think a lot of the delivery, it's all in the delivery. So if I tell a young guy, you need to eat better, you need to eat healthier, they're probably not going to listen to me. But if I say, listen, if you make these sort of changes with your nutrition, you're going to feel better, and then you're going to perform better, and then you're going to make more money. That usually resonates with more people. And it's true, it's not a lie, but you have to figure out how to give the delivery.
Yeah, understanding people's whys for sure.
Agreed.
Which is going to change at different times of their life, you know? So when they're a current athlete winning and perhaps making money is going to resonate. And then maybe afterwards, it's how do you maintain your weight? And how do you go to work during the day doing whatever you're doing and then come back? And how do you contribute to the family because you know you don't feel like crap when you get home? So those whys are going to change. Mark, do you want to speak on what some of those whys might look like when you consider yourself a former athlete?
Yeah, quick story first though, talking about former players and that, you know, guys that were current and then become former players. I went to an alumni event one time and I saw a guy hanging out, you know, and I went over and I was like, "Hey man, what's up? I'm Mark, you know, class, you know, graduated in 11." He's like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh, what position did you play? Were you like a guard or like a center?" And he's like, "No, man, I was a running back." And I was like, "Oh," because now his body, he's put on enough weight. The dude was probably, 280 pounds now. And I'm like, "You look like you would have been a really good offensive guard or center." But he's like, "No, I was a running back." And, you know, those running backs and wide receivers, defensive backs, those dudes that run so much more during their playing time. Yeah, they're burning so many calories. Those dudes always were, you know, we were always envious of them because we would be, especially in college. In college, they can put you on a pretty restrictive meal plan because they have a lot more control of you because you don't have a lot of financial freedom and you don't have a lot of, you know, ability to make your own choices with food. Professional dudes, man, they would be, you know, the team, even if the team had best intentions, the teams that I had that had like a really engaged nutritionist that would like present meal plans and have salmon and quinoa and kale and all that good stuff for you to eat like during the week. On Saturday, when we would jump on the team plane to go to the games, they would have the rookies go to the closest, you know, they'd go to Popeyes or Chick-fil-A or they'd go to someplace and they'd bring these bags of food onto the plane for the veteran players to just wolf down. Same deal. Like we're about to go play, you know, a football game that could determine the outcome of our season. And here we are wolfing down thousands of calories of high saturated fats and just stuff that the nutritionist just has to turn a blind eye to at that point. Because he's like, you know, got to let you guys be happy, I guess, you know, whatever we're going to do for you. But for the whys, yeah, a lot of offensive and defensive linemen, when you get done playing, you learn like type 2 diabetes and you learn about heart failure, you know, heart disease and all the things that come with being over 300 pounds. And it's like, okay, yeah, I've accumulated this money or I've, you know, these life experiences and now I want to enjoy those things. And it's like, oh, if you stay at this weight for very long, you're not going to be able to do that. And so I see more offensive and defensive linemen when I get together with former players. More of those type of guys are slimming down, mostly because it is so labor intensive to maintain that high muscle content and, you know, fat content while you're burning thousands of calories a day. So I think they're more educated on that process. So when they get done playing, when you're not consuming that many calories, they usually all slim down a little bit, and that's they're trying to look good for the second life, the second career.
And you make so many great points there because, you know, we don't want the college years or the professional athlete years to be the best years of someone's life. You know, I think back to college and in college, I mean, it was fun. I was at the University of Miami. I was obsessed with getting into medical school. So I would say, even though I have a lot more responsibility now, I would say right now, I feel like I'm living some of the best years of my life. And so when it comes to athletes, we want people to live long and prosperous lives. I recently saw an article in the New England Journal that football players are 4 to 5 times more likely to have sleep apnea. And that's how some football players, young ones, one who was 43 years old, you know, died in his sleep. And the thought was that, you know, sleep apnea was a contributing factor there. And that can be, you know, because of the thick necks, because of the body habitus. And as people put on more weight, they're at higher risk. So you brought up so many great points today. And, you know, we hope this is just the beginning of so many future discussions. My sister and I are going to talk about ways to, you know, just basic education about how the best years may be yet to come, you know, even those who are so incredibly accomplished like yourself, and other, collegiate athletes like you. It's like that was one part of your life. So what do we do after the game is over? And that's why we're talking about this around the Super Bowl time, because wow, is there so much more to life?
Amen.
Right? Are you feeling empowered? Mark, what are your thoughts?
Power. I'm ready to go eat a salad and go for a jog.
Awesome. Mark, any last minute thoughts? We're going to have you on so many more of these. I cannot wait. Live from the car.
From the front seat of the car. Mark Asper presents. No, yeah, it's one of those things. It's kind of a catch-22 on this, where there is information out there. There is opportunities for guys to be educated on their finances, on their fitness, nutrition, health. There's all these. The NFL tries to do a lot of player education stuff. They even have like a rookie symposium where they teach guys all the new stuff, like things they need to be concerned about. But it does take, like all things, it takes some individual buy-in, and it takes a person who, a conversion moment or an opportunity to be like, oh shoot, my career isn't going to last forever. I'm not going to play football the rest of my life. I'm not always going to have the metabolism I'm going to have. So there has to be some, a moment in their life, an aha moment where they catch the vision and they're like, oh, I need to plan for the future. I need to get my degree. I need to start eating right. I need to start putting some money away. And until something happens like that, and you never know when it's going to happen. So the more opportunities that, people like you and your sister get that information out there, meet with these guys, have conversations about it, the greater chance it has to, maybe now is the time that they're ready to hear the message and it'll sink in, because they've heard the message before. But football players especially have kind of a God complex. Like, I'm always going to be the biggest, fastest, strongest. I'm always going to be healthy. And so when they transition into that former player life, that's something I hear more than anything from guys is, oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. And so kudos to you two for being so engaged and caring about men and their health.
Awesome. Well, that's all we have today. Thank you, Mark. We'll see you next time. That's all, folks. I'm Amy Pearlman.
And I'm Michelle Pearlman. Thank you for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.